A quick note before we start. This is not a list of the worst rated games on Steam. It is a list of the most disappointing, and those are very different things. Disappointment is the gap between what we were promised and what we actually got. So, you'll see big budgets, famous studios, and trailers that had us hyped out of our minds, followed by a release that landed with a thud. I ranked these by how hard they fell, not just by their score. Some are broken, some are just boring, and the number one spot is one of the steepest falls from grace this industry has ever seen. 10 of them, worst to first. Let's get into it. Starting at 10, Forspoken. This was Square Enix's big new franchise, a flashy open-world action game with magic parkour that genuinely felt great to move around in. And that is roughly where the praise ends. The writing became a meme before the game even launched. An insufferable lead character and dialogue, so awkward it got clipped and mocked across the entire internet. The open world was empty, the story was limp, and the whole thing felt like it was chasing trends that had already passed it by. Most players agree the combat is fun, but everything wrapped around it is a letdown. It sold poorly, reviewed worse, and the studio behind it was shut down not long after. A genuinely good combat system trapped inside a game almost nobody connected with. A rough way to start, and unfortunately, things are about to get rougher. At 9, the Callisto Protocol. This one hurts because of who made it, the director of the original Dead Space, building a brand new sci-fi horror game with a massive budget. On paper, a guaranteed hit. In practice, the most common review is some version of, "It is like Dead Space, but generic." The atmosphere is there, and the gore is impressive, but the characters are forgettable. The story goes nowhere, and the combat leans on a dodge system that fights you as much as the monsters do. Worse, players hit serious technical problems, including a game-breaking bug near the very end where the screen goes black and simply never loads. When your spiritual successor makes people want to go replay the original instead, you have missed the mark. A beautiful, expensive horror game with no soul underneath it. Number 8, Gotham Knights. Made by the studio behind Arkham Origins, set in that same beloved universe. And that is exactly the problem. Everyone walked in expecting Arkham, and what they got was slower, stiffer, and far less fun. The combat lacks the flow that made those games special. The open world is a chore of repetitive crimes, and the gear and leveling systems feel bolted on from a completely different genre. The most damning reviews point out that Arkham Asylum, a game well over a decade older, still plays better today. Before a Batman game with this pedigree, merely okay is a crushing disappointment. At 7, Diablo 4. And this is the most divisive entry on the whole list, because the core game is genuinely good. The campaign is dark and gorgeous. The combat feels fantastic, and for the first 20 hours, it is everything fans wanted. Then, the endgame arrives. The recurring complaint is that Diablo 4 slowly reveals itself as a number-go-up treadmill wrapped around an aggressive cash shop, with seasons that give and then take away your build at the studio's whim. At a launch plagued by memory leaks, crashing, and poor optimization even on strong machines, and the goodwill evaporated fast. It is a game people love to be frustrated by. A brilliant first act, undercut by an endgame and a business model that slowly wore players down. When a Diablo launches, and the loudest conversation is disappointment, something went wrong in the loot. Number 6, Cities Skylines. Even on powerful hardware, the game crawled, with frame rates that turned building anything into a slideshow. And beyond the technical mess, it shipped missing features that the first game had added years ago, leaving longtime fans wondering why they had even upgraded. The simulation under the hood is ambitious, and the developers have patched it steadily since. But first impressions matter, and this one launched both broken and bare bones. A sequel that, for a long time, was a straight downgrade from the game it replaced. That is the definition of disappointing for a series people adore. At 5, Starfield. Bethesda's first brand new universe in 25 years. a space epic that a generation of fans waited a literal decade for. And the most telling review I read simply said, "This is the first Bethesda game I have found no reason to play." That is the whole tragedy in one sentence. What always made their games magical was the sense of discovery, walking over a hill and stumbling into a story. Starfield replaced that with menus, loading screens, and procedurally generated planets that are technically enormous and emotionally empty. It is competent, it is stable. It is also, for a lot of people, the first Bethesda game that is genuinely a little boring. After a decade of anticipation, competent and a little boring might be the most disappointing outcome of all. Number 4. Payday 3. Fans of the co-op heist series waited years for this, and many of them pre-ordered the deluxe edition for around $90. What they got on launch day was a game they could not even play. Payday, the word that comes up over and over in the reviews, is scammed. People felt they paid premium money for a broken, hollow downgrade. The studio has worked hard to fix it since, but that launch torched the community's trust. A beloved series fumbled at the worst possible moment, right in front of its most loyal fans. At 3, The Lord of the Rings, Gollum. Ugly textures, broken animations, stealth that barely functions, and bugs absolutely everywhere. No clever idea buried under the jank, no diamond in the rough. Just a cynical license grab that disrespected both the source material and the people who paid for it. For a world this beloved, Gollum is not just disappointing, it is a little insulting. One ring to rule them all, and one game everyone would rather forget. Number 2, Redfall. And this one stings because of who made it. Arcane, the studio behind Dishonored and Prey, some of the smartest games ever designed. They turned in an always online open-world vampire shooter that arrived dead on arrival. Enemy AI that stood still and ignored you. Constant performance problems. A world that felt empty and lifeless. And that always online requirement meant players were greeted by connecting to server screens instead of an actual game. It was a baffling, fundamental misunderstanding of what made Arcane special. All of it traded away to chase a live service trend nobody asked them to chase, mostly negative, and deservedly so. Watching one of the most talented studios in the world stumble this badly was genuinely sad to see. A reminder that pedigree guarantees nothing when a project loses its way. And number 1, the most disappointing game on this list, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Here is why it tops everything else. And what they delivered was a live service shooter, the exact genre players had been begging the industry to please stop chasing. The fluid melee combat that defined their legacy was gone, replaced by generic gunplay and a grind built around a battle pass. The story controversially sidelined and disrespected the very heroes fans showed up to see, and it shipped buggy, repetitive, and creatively hollow. It bombed so hard, it reportedly cost its publisher a fortune and gutted the studio's reputation overnight. This is not just a bad game, it is one of the steepest falls from grace gaming has ever witnessed. The moment a legendary studio chased a trend straight off a cliff, and that is what makes it the most disappointing game of them all. So that is the list. 10 reminders that a big budget and a famous name guarantee absolutely nothing. Almost every game here had real talent and serious money behind it. What they lacked was focus, time, or the courage to not chase a trend. Now, I know I left some off. And if you want the complete opposite of this list, stick around, because next time we are counting down the games that actually earned the hype.